Hello everyone. In this video you will see a crash test of my van, which I made from plasticine. In total you will see 4 epic and destructive collisions. 2 in the front, 1 in the back, and 1 in the side of the car. But before moving on to the crash test itself, and see the epic damage to the body, I want to show you my model in detail, and compare it with the previous version of the van, which I created 5 years ago. There is already a video on my channel where I show you the full and detailed process of creating this van, from the very beginning to the fully finished model. Watch it using the tip above, or by the link in the description. I detailed the model very well, and even worked on the bottom of the car, and I molded it in 24 scale. I tried to make everything as realistic as possible, working on even the smallest details. This is how the bottom of my previous model looked 5 years ago. Then I had less experience, and the detailing was not as detailed. This is how I molded the interior in the new model. I paid special attention to it, so that it would turn out natural and similar to the original. And this is how it looked on the old version. The detailing of the elements is worse, and they are not as clear and even as they are now. And under the opening hood, I made a beautiful detailing of the engine. And this is how it looked before. Here the difference is not so noticeable. The detailing of the engine is still good. Now let's compare them externally, and what immediately catches the eye. This is the quality of the paint on the old model. Then I painted poorly, and I did not know how to do it. The new model has no paint. It is all blue, ordinary colored plasticine, which I stuck a thin layer on top of the main body elements, which are made of very hard NSP plasticine. The entire body is covered with matte varnish, and the remaining black elements are already paint. In general, you can see how much better the new version turned out to be. The bodywork, even gaps in the doors and body parts. The wheels look especially cool, which I made much better and more natural. Everything together looks harmonious and beautiful. It turned out much better than the old version, and I am happy with the new result that I managed to make. To create a smooth and proportionally correct model, in the modeling I used drawings, and also carefully looked at the photos with the car itself to do everything correctly, and similar to the original, and I made the body parts thin, so that deformation of the body was possible. That is, inside it is absolutely empty and held on the frame. Thanks to it, the entire structure is held together and nothing sags anywhere. And since this is plasticine, and I specially made the structure thin with the expectation of destruction, then these very destructions are possible. Plasticine is a soft material and it will deform, resembling real damage to the car, which I will show you now. Let's start the crash test with the first collision in the front of the car. This is how much damage there was. The car even ricocheted and fell off the board. The front part is smashed tangentially against a beveled block. We see traces of damage on the parts, cracks and scratches from the collision. The wheel was badly damaged. The tire was crushed and the wheel rim cracked. The hood was also slightly bent, and the door received a very noticeable dent. These are the results of the first collision. They were not very strong. Now I will replace the block with a large wooden one and start the car again, but harder. This time we see much more damage. The right part is completely smashed, the hood was strongly bent and the wheel was pinched, and it damaged the door. There are also visible dents on it, and the door sill was slightly bent. From above you can see how much the body parts were bent. The damage was much worse than the first time, and as for plasticine, it looks very natural and realistic. And this is how it looks from below. The result of damage to the left and right sides is different. Now we will perform a collision in the rear part of this model. And here's how the rear part was smashed. It was bent very badly. The deformation of the body is very large and affected the entire side part. It is all in dents and bends. I accelerated the car a little more, but since the rear part is just flat and even body panels, they bent so strongly and easily, and the doors just went inside the body. The corner of the roof was also bent and pulled the side part along with it. It certainly looks epic. It was a cool collision. It bent almost like real metal. And here is this damage from below. We see how much the wheel was pinched and even the bridge was displaced. Now we'll perform a side collision with a pole, which will imitate a pencil. The car is completely smashed. It was almost torn in half. I can't even pick it up because it is barely holding on, and it can already fall apart into two parts. Incredibly strong damage. The pencil reached right to the middle of the car, but since it began to tip over during a sharp launch, the model ran into the pencil right with the threshold. That's why it tore it so hard. If the collision had been even, the damage would have been uniform. But it turns out that the roof practically did not take the blow, only bent a little. And here's how it started to tear apart on the other side. The pillar broke off from the roof and the side door began to detach from the cabin. And here's what's below. The pencil broke through the threshold, reinforcement, and even broke the frame in half. And the whole car began to bend towards the collision. It was an incredibly powerful and epic collision. And after all this, my car will be stored with the rest of the wrecked cars after my crash tests. This is the new crash test with this car. If you liked it and want to see more videos like this, then click like and subscribe to my creative channel. And let me remind you that you can watch the video about the full process of creating this car, from the very beginning to the finished model on my channel and at the link in the description. Thank you all for watching this video. Bye everyone.